Joining us live on NC Continental Prime from Cape Town, South Africa to discuss the life and times of FW de Klerk is Lukanyo Calata, a South African activist. Good evening to you, Lukanyo.
Good evening to you, sir, and thank you so very much for the opportunity.
We're happy to have you here. Now, in your publication, you described the late FW de Klerk as an apartheid criminal. Can you tell us more about these allegations leveled against the late leader and why you decided to use those words?
All right. So my father was a gentleman by the name of Calata, who was among 4 activists that were brutally killed by the apartheid government in 1985, and the 4 of them became known as the Craddock 4. Now, FW de Klerk at the time was a minister in the government, and he sat in on meetings of the State Security Council at the time. And what they were doing, in those meetings was basically discussing what to do about these 2 teachers from the Eastern Cape, Matthew Goniwe and Calata, who had led a successful revolution against the apartheid government. So de Klerk knew that the apartheid government was planning to murder my father and his comrades, and yet he never did anything to try to stop that crime from happening. Also, in 1993, years after the Craddock 4 were murdered, which de Klerk was a part of, de Klerk, by then he was president, he ordered a raid in some home in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape, where 5 children were killed in that raid, and those children were killed in their sleep by apartheid military on the orders of FW de Klerk, who ordered the military to go and raid that house and to kill whoever that was in there, which was something that he admitted that he had done. So FW de Klerk had the blood of our fathers, and he had the blood of young South African children on his hands. The fact that the ruling African National Party, National Congress, never charged him for those crimes does not excuse the fact that de Klerk was an apartheid criminal that that ordered the murders of young black men and children in South Africa during apartheid, and for that he must be he will remain a criminal.
Now, Lukanyo, I'm happy you mentioned the ruling ANC, the African National Congress. You've accused the party of preventing those involved in the case of being accountable for their crimes. Do you think you would ever get the justice you deserve? And what do you make of the Truth and Reconciliation Council? Didn't that do enough to heal old wounds?
Look, the issue around the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, I think we must try and put that to bed. The TRC did what they were supposed to. They allowed our mothers to go there and to speak of their pain and of the horrors that were visited upon them by de Klerk and other apartheid governments. Right? So they did what they were supposed to. And then the TRC handed the government, by then led by Thabo Mbeki, former President Thabo Mbeki, they handed them over 300 cases and said these cases, some of them need further investigation, the others need prosecution. And the case of the Craddock 4 just needed prosecution. It did not need further investigation. So the ANC then failed to put in place the structures to prosecute de Klerk and others of his ilk that had committed such crimes against our humanity. And for the last 27 years of the ANC's running this country of ours, the ANC has done basically everything that they could to protect white apartheid murderers and killers and criminals from ever being held to account for the crimes that they committed. So we blame the ANC today that de Klerk has died and he had never been held accountable for killing the Klerk 4 and for killing, other political activists in this country that fought against the barbaric system of apartheid.
So, Lukanyo, you've lost any sort of hope in getting justice under an ANC government?
I won't say that we've lost hope because, if we lose hope, then, we might as well be dead. We have been working very, very hard for years now to try to convince the African National Congress and the government that it leads that we deserve justice. Now, just last week, I was in conversation with our Justice Minister here in South Africa, Ronald Lamola, and he made certain commitments, among them that the ANC and the government is going to appoint a judge to investigate or to lead an inquiry for us to find out why TRC matters were never investigated. And secondly, that on the 2nd of December, this government and the National Prosecuting Authority is going to give us, as the families of the Klerk 4, a decision as to whether or not it will prosecute people and suspects linked to the murders of the Klerk 4. De Klerk might be dead today, but there are at least 15 other suspects linked to the Klerk 4 murders, and they are alive. And the NPA has got no choice but to act very fast in prosecuting those 15 other suspects before they too die. So, and we are working very hard on it. So come December 2nd, we will have a decision, and then hopefully we will ensure that those suspects are charged. So justice has been delayed, but I won't say that it has been denied because we won't allow the ANC to continue to duck and dive.
Now, Lukanyo, let's talk about the man FW de Klerk. He's apologized on many occasions for his complicities during the apartheid era. In his last words to South Africans, he repeated the same message. He's apologized, and we've seen eulogies pouring from all over the world. The British Prime Minister has paid tribute to him. The Irish Prime Minister, to quote his exact words, says, FW de Klerk is a man whose decision at a key moment advanced South Africa's journey from apartheid to democracy. Is he deserving of these praises, or do you think it's just hagiography? What are your thoughts?
De Klerk is not deserving of any praises. The decision that he made in 1990 to unban political parties and to release political prisoners such as Nelson Mandela and others was not taken because he's a good man and he wanted to do that. He was taken because by then South Africa had been under a state of emergency for 5 years. Right, the international community had started to clamp down very, very hard on the National Party. Remember, South Africa was under international sanctions at that time. So it wasn't, the decision that it took wasn't because, he was such a good man and he wanted freedom and democracy for us all. It wasn't. It was because he was forced to do that because international pressure had begun to bear on South Africa, and they had no other option but to act in that manner that it did. So de Klerk is not deserving at all of any praise. De Klerk is a murderer. The blood of our fathers are dripping off his hands and those of his colleagues.
Now, finally, Lukanyo, before I let you go, what lessons can African leaders learn from the life and times of the late South African leader, FW de Klerk?
I think the lesson that African leaders throughout the continent, what they need to learn is that we are not interested in the legacies that they want to leave for themselves. We will tell the truth about the kinds of legacies that they leave while they are in office. And they better treat us right. And they better do what is expected of us or what is expected of them, because we will have no mercy absolutely no mercy, none whatsoever, in making sure that they are remembered. You see, the good leaders, we will praise them and we will say that this is a man who was a true African at heart. De Klerk, we will never praise him for being an African, because there was not a single thing about his actions or his deeds or in his words that were African, and he does not deserve any praise from us.
I believe that's a good place to leave it. Thank you very much for talking to us on NC Continental Prime. Lukanyo Calata, South African activist. We do appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.